best male CrossFitters in the history of CrossFit. And now we're about to do the women. We're going to start at number 10. This is the official list of the greatest CrossFitters of all time. Brian Friend's best of 10.
Yeah,
And
and honestly, I'm a little bit more apprehensive about the women than the men. This is tough, but I feel confident.
How many did you put a lot of time in on this, or did you just whip this out last night while you were sipping on some tequila?
No tequila, but I no I made a list when you asked me to do. I had a list. If I wanted to do this, I put together kind of a skeleton, and then I went and did quite a bit of research and digging. Didn't forget anyone. There's some people that have had a lot of years of experience at the games that just don't necessarily come to mind when you think of top 10, and so I wanted to be sure that I wasn't from it. And then once I narrowed it down to, I really only, in the men's side, there were only 11 people I was really considering out of the top 10, and for the women, maybe 12, 10. And then getting the order for the women, I'd say 5 through 9 was pretty tough for me to put in the correct order. But I'm happy with where they are.
I wonder if you're going to struggle with this later. I wonder if we're going to be like a week or 2 weeks out. You're going to accidentally see some comments. Someone's going to fucking punch you in the face at the games. And you're going.
Fucking gonna be me.
No, I mean, the thing is, 2 weeks from now, we're going to, right? Because 7 of the competing at the games this year, and I think it was 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 of the 10 are competing. So there's like definitely an opportunity. We talked about on the last show how I really think that this year is critical for some of these athletes who didn't necessarily have the best performances in the last 2 years, or who had their best performances in the last 2 years and need to basically to prove to someone like me that those weren't products of the test, but that actually their fitness is that good.
Just a quick little house cleaning here. I know James Hobart is an accomplished CrossFit Games athlete, one of his many accolades, and he didn't make the top 10 on your last male list. Did James make the top 10 in the female list?
James,
The top 10 against these women. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't
have. As he wipes a tear from his eye.
I wouldn't have. I've trained and competed against some of the, I wouldn't have.
I think you could have at least snuck into 10th.
That's really nice of you to say. You can't walk back from the injury you've already given me.
Okay, Brian and Ryan, let's start off. Brian, thanks for doing this. It's about time someone made the official list. You are the man. I think you've taken all the air out of the room on who knows what about CrossFit. So let's celebrate. Let's celebrate these CrossFitters, but more importantly, celebrate your giant brain. Number 10.
We'll celebrate the cross.
Okay.
Number 10 is a person with a career, but a very impressive games career. In 4 years, she competed 4 out of 5 years at the games, and her 5th, 2nd, and 3rd. And that's an average out of 4 years at the games. She did win 4 events those 4 years. She's maybe lesser known now in terms of a competitive athlete and more known for some of the stuff she's done in the medical and setting out on her own with that podcast that she has. Her career was kind of cut short by an injury, rupture regionals in, I think, 2015. And she did that handstand walk with the boot on to try to she could, so people may remember that. But when I'm just looking at her competitive history, 4 times to the games, 4 in the top 5, I had to have her on the 10th spot. At least people can come up in the sport and have great long careers and bump her out. But for now, she still deserves this honor.
That picture is incredible. And the one part of her body that I just cannot stop staring at are those wristbands. I can't believe I don't have my wristbands on today. but that is an incredible picture. Even the CrossFit logo in yellow with the yellow wristbands and the yellow top. All she needs is like maybe like a sunflower, a little dandelion in her ear, or something yellow like in her hair, and that thing would be perfect. Even the weights behind her, the yellow and green. It's a great picture. I do not. I would have never thought she made the top 10. That being
Well,
said,
I mean, it's kind of surprising. I wasn't too familiar with her career, but when I just stacked it up against the other ones, I mean, there's some girls who maybe
barely
missed that people could make arguments for, but man, 4 times the games, 4 times in the top 5, 2 times on the podium, 4 career event wins. It's pretty impressive in a small time domain, and it's okay still to have her here.
and
she's a doctor. Can we talk about that for a second? Yeah. We used to call Julia the human weapon.
Yeah, she was in residency or going to school or doing whatever you do, medical school, whatever you do to become a doctor. She was doing that while training and competing. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, next level. What was her first year, Brian, showing up at the CrossFit Games?
I think she competed 2011, 12, 13, and 14, I think.
Okay, so legitimate years.
Yeah, she was 10 and 11. She was 5th, 2nd in 2012 to Annie, and 3rd in 2014 behind Camille and Annie.
And it'll be very interesting to see who number 11 is when we get to after we get to number 1, to see if number 11 is Jamie Hobart.
Who?
You don't know the athlete, Jamie Hobart?
Okay.
This joke has maybe another half mile on it, and then I think it's totally dead. But I'm glad you're drawing so much pleasure out of it.
Absolutely. That's why you're on the show, for pleasure.
Yep.
So anyway, 10. We can talk about 11 and 12 later on, and I felt like it's if anyone wanted to make an argument for those two, I could see it, but
Can we see 11 real quick?
Sure.
No, let's wait till
No?
the end, Hobart. Oh, come on. Let's wait. And by the way, someone just wrote in the comments, I thought Hobart was buying a mic. Nick, I thought Hobart was buying a mic too. I've only sent him the link at least 2 times.
It's supposed to be here today. We just did this podcast too early, but whatever. You're right, Nick. Sorry. If I get invited back next time, I might have a mic.
You will always be invited back. Number 9. That's the only nice thing I'm going to say to you for the rest
Thank
of today.
God.
and, getting into some modern era. Carrie Pierce. Carrie Pierce will be competing in her 7th CrossFit Games. In the previous 6 times she's been to the games, 5 of those times. Her rookie year, she was 21st. Then she had a 5th, 10th, 6th, 5th, and 3rd. That 3rd, obviously, stage 2 of the CrossFit Games at the ranch against 5 female athletes. She's won 3 events at the games, and she's, as we talked about in the men's conversation, 2019, 2020, about these modern era athletes, we have some who've done really well at the games in those 2 years relative to the other performances, and some who have. She's one of these that was fairly consistent in all of the recent years, obviously, and she was consistent in the sanctional circuit. She took 2nd and 3rd 2 years at Wadapalooza against Tia and Sarah Sigmund's daughter, who beat there, and then she was 6th at Rogue Invitational the year she competed. So she's amongst the best in the world right now, very consistent and comes in here at 9th on the list with an opportunity, obviously, to improve as she's still competing.
Hobart, Nick just sent you $5 to put towards your mic through YouTube's donation option.
Well, nick of time. You got a great handle. Thank you. Keep it coming.
Brian, how far apart are Carrie and Julie Fouché? Like, I'm guessing they're not even close. Like, basically, you've by putting Carrie Pierce at number 9, the first thing that pops in my head is that number 9 is significantly better than number 10.
Yeah, I've had groups of athletes, and so in the 5 through 9 is one tier of athlete for me right now, and it was very difficult for me to distinguish between the next group, and I just had her at the top of that group.
I have a question. What if Carrie didn't finish 3rd last year, where she finished? Does she stay in 9th place?
I mean, assuming that it was somewhere inside the top 8 or 9 last year, I think she would still be in this position. Yeah, I think that there is a gap here between 10 and then the rest of the field.
Huge gap. And she also, I mean, when she won Mary, she beat everybody. Like, she didn't just beat women in her field. She beat every CrossFit Games athlete, including the best male of all time.
Yeah, that's true. And Matt, what I'm about to say, relevant, but it's like less relevant than the fact that she beat a Brent Fickout motion workout. Obviously, you have to have a tremendous capacity to do that. About 600 plus repetitions of a workout, and you're the person you're comparing them to, or 8 or 9 inches shorter than the person you're comparing them to. I don't think that someone who
How much
better
does
does your capacity have to be to make up 8 inches over 600 body weight reps? Pistols, handstand push-ups, and pull-ups. I mean, if Sevan and I were exactly the same fitness, and I'm 5 inches, I could never beat him in that workout.
All right.
I just blocked everything out Brian said.
That was
because
devastating. What he
I just blocked it out.
took me
It's
to death. Yeah.
nonsense.
Let's cut that out of this.
What Carrie did,
never mind.
what you said that Carrie did is like people really get your head wrapped around that.
Yeah, at the games, with a
fittest
judge.
men. Yeah, go ahead, James.
No, you go. Let's double team him right now.
Like you were saying, at the games with a judge, she beat every single male CrossFitter in the world in that workout, and that is really a CrossFit workout. And she is a complete savage. Brian, could you say that she's the fittest American ever to grace the floor of the CrossFit Games?
Let's hold on that question.
Actually,
Okay.
this gave me an idea for another awesome top 10 list.
Don't share it. Someone will steal it.
I won't. I'll tell you after.
Actually, you can share it because Brian already explained to me that Brian and I have this talk. Even if someone steals it, there's no one more relevant than the three of us. Yeah, I said it.
Most of
Number-
Okay, I'll tell you after. Let's go.
Well,
Number eight.
real quick, I'm sorry to focus on two outfits now, but what do you think about that top she's wearing? I feel like that really puts a lot of stress on the camera's ability to process when you get things striped like that are black and white and the lines so close to each other. So athletes, just so you know, that is a difficult. You're challenging the media's technology when you wear clothes like that. That's all I got to say about that.
That was great. Thank you.
Yes. Number 8.
Oh, man.
No way.
Wow.
Savage, man. And she's like one of the oldest competitors in the field. You're Brian. All right, let's
Wow.
go.
So
Do
you
your thing.
think she's too low on the list?
Yeah, but I don't know 7 through 1, so do your thing where you convince me and.
Well, so actually, the decision between Holta and Pierce was razor thin for me. Their performance at the games mirror each other closely in the sense that Kristen has one more. This year it'll be Carrie's 7th year. Kristen has a 2nd place finish. Carrie has a
their only podium?
podium finish. Carrie's actually games in terms of finishing placement is 1 placement higher, 8.3 instead of 9.5. That's Kristen's. Kristen's won 5. Again, each of them have only made the podium in their last 2 years. They did the games in terms of beating each other, by the way. Kristen will beat her 1 year, Carrie will beat her another. They're very close on the podium a lot of years. In the off-season competitions from the past 2, Kristen's performance is, it's really razor thin. First, 5th, 2nd, and a 9th, opposed to Carrie's 2nd, 6th, and 3rd. Both of them are competing at pretty good competitions for the most part. So I have Kristen slightly ahead of Carrie here, but this was one of them that between the two of them for me.
Brian, I'm going to break some really bad news to you. Hobart has jumped ship and now is lobbying people in the chat room to attack you. This is some real woke shit you're doing, Hobart, and I'm a little disappointed in you jumping ship. James, you're James Hobart the second?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Learn something new every day.
I just think Kristen Holte's performance of getting on the podium in 2019 through a tougher field, I bumps her up to a 7, but I've worked out with her before. I just think she's a savage, and I think the
Well,
fact considered.
know who's in seventh.
Well, you're gonna tell me hopefully eventually. So
Look, and that
Number
second
seven.
place finish is phenomenal. But again, that's in a year where, you know, a bunch of very relevant athletes missed the cut by small margins and didn't have a chance to finish. I think they deserve to have the opportunity to. Obviously, I'm not in charge of running the games and making those choices, but I think that her finish might have been quite different that year had even 20 finished the second half of the test.
Have you trained with Carrie Pierce, James?
no, but I've met her a handful of times.
So that was nice of you at least to reveal your bias.
Yeah, 100% bias on this one. Yep, 100%.
Okay, Brian, number 7.
7, again, this was a tough one for me to place, but I'm
Wow.
Kristen Clever.
Wow.
James doesn't like it. So Kristen's, for those that don't know, she's been to the games 5 times. The last time she competed at the games was kind of just a shell of who she was prior to that. She took 32nd, but in the 4 years that first 4 years she competed, she was first, second, fourth, and fourth. Fourth, first, fourth in order. She has 6 event wins at the games, which I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 makes her 7th best. And I don't really have a ton to say here. If you haven't ever 10 CrossFit Games with battle between her and Annie Thorisdottir, it's one of the best of all time. I think they won like 8 or 9 of between the two of them. Kristen Flyers, in a lot of ways on this list, she's in a while. She's a bit of a smaller athlete, but she was phenomenal for the year she was there. I expect that she'll, obviously she'll just slide down the list as time goes by, but for now I still think similar to Julie Fouché, but better. She deserves some credit for now.
What do you think about this idea that Kristen Clever kind of changed the sport? She kind of showed women what they were capable of, and then everyone kind of took hold of that and ran with it and kind of left her in the dust. But I feel like she upped how much the year she won the games. How much did she win by? I feel like she really took the women's division to the next level, and then the next year after that, it went even one level higher.
That year was pulling way ahead of everyone else. So it was some small margin over Annie, big margin over third place, and then the next year it flipped. Annie was able to beat her, and then she was fourth the year after that as well. And then that was basically the end of her career. One more appearance, but a 32nd place finish. So last year or two that they were competing, they weren't in that conversation. But I don't know, 4 years, 4 top tour event wins. Yeah, she was early on in the sport, but I definitely agree that she helped to forge the way ahead.
I also feel this is kind of off subject here, but once you start placing like 30th and below at the CrossFit Games, it's really basically 30 through 40th. I always picture sort of as a tie, a 10-way tie, because when you start getting into the people who finished at the bottom, the injuries start coming into account, people pulling out of events. There's just it becomes more circumstantial than really how well you did. I could be wrong on that. That's just the way I think about it.
Like when I think about at the games, the closer you get to the top, the more each place matters. So I think there's a big difference between fourth and fifth, maybe similar. Then you can say okay, 6 through 8, maybe 9 through 15 is kind of like somewhat in and then the gaps get bigger and bigger, or the groups get bigger and bigger.
What's the deal here, Hobart? Are you having kind of the same thing I am, that you think she's sort of a relic and that she wasn't even really competing in a mature sport,
No.
and so she shouldn't be on the list? Because
I
I
think-
sort of had that with Julie a little bit, but with Kristen, it definitely even comes in more.
I'm not going to call Kristen Clever a relic just because I agree with you. No, I do. I agree with you on what you said. Like athletes like her and Annie, I think they spearheaded a huge change in what was possible from the female athlete field, and just like their attitude, demeanor, training approach. But I just think the more current competitions and performance in more current competitions weigh so much heavier in this. Like, I don't know if I would keep her in the top 10, I think, but not 7, not ahead of Carrie and Kristen Holte. But
I also haven't looked at the data, but I would have put Graham ahead of Dan Bailey in the men's list.
Yeah, 'cause
Oh,
he
yeah.
has and he has a championship.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Poor-
Brian's the expert.
Poor
I'm
Brian. Poor
I'm
Brian.
just here to
Brian's
take punches.
You want
Brian's-
to talk about Graham and Dan?
No. Let's do that on the next show. We have Hobart on. We'll have Hobart on later this week, and we'll bring up that.
I hear what you guys are saying about Kristen Clever, and if Kristen Holta and Carrie Pierce, like their best performances come in years that is just hard for me to extremely heavily their podium finishes relative to other years. Year in place in the top 5, then I will not bat an eye, and I will move them ahead of Kristen Clever easily. But if 15th, I don't know.
Fair. Number 6.
6, this was probably the most difficult person for me to place on the list. Many things happened to her off the competition floor. It's similar to a Fikowski and Vellner situation. So she shows up to the games. I was up to the games, 2015. Is that right? 2015 was her first year? Yeah, because third, fourth. And then things start falling off the rail for her. And she has, obviously the 2019 season's kind of weird, but she doesn't make it through the cuts. She finishes 21st. The 2018 games she had to win. The 2019 games she finished 20, and then 21st last year. So when you look at these three, the heels of a third, and the fourth, now who is this athlete, and what is her real potential in the sport? The other thing is, relative to everyone inside the top 10, she has the least. She's only won 2 events, fib event that James was talking about earlier, and heavy DT. But this is the really weird part. In the midst of having bad performances in the last 2 years at the games, she competed at 8 sanctionals. She won 4 of them. She was second
Wow.
twice. Was third twice, also both to Toomey, and one time Green beat her before she changed her last name, and one time Carrie Pierce beat her.
Wow.
Almost untouchable in these off-season competitions, with the exception of Toomey, who obviously is heading shoulders above. And yet she's been bad at the games. Why has she been
And-
bad at the game? Go ahead.
She won the Open 3 times, right, Brian?
And she's a 3-time Open champion. I don't put her. I don't really consider it
Wow.
relevant, but yes, she's one of
By
those.
the way, I disagree with
can I ask
Brian
you- hold on.
100% on that. I disagree
Can I
with
ask
Brian
you why
100%
you
on
don't? We're attacking him. Can I ask you why you don't consider the Open that relevant? Because I think it's super relevant, and I just want to hear your insight there.
I'm going to say it's relevant because she has to beat 100,000 people to win that award. I don't that the best athletes in the sport are always really investing in the Open. So for me, my assumption is that the last 5 years or 4 years or so, Tia-Clair Toomey is just doing those work as one of her training pieces on that day. And Matt Fraser is doing the same.
I disagree. Yeah.
And Rich Froning is just casually doing the opening and finishing 10th. And that's the point. He could invest in that and potentially do better. End of a training day, 20 minutes after the announcement's been made, with his training in his life. And I think that whereas at the CrossFit Games, if you're following that
right now.
they are preparing in every single way and focusing every detail of their life to be an optimal physical and competition performance for the CrossFit Games. So your performance at that trumps any Open performance to me, and it's not even, to me, it's a negligible conversation. But you guys are free to disagree.
No, I just wanted to have you say it because it sounds more legitimate coming from you. Do you think Sarah's an athlete who suffered from peaking too early because she performed so well in those outside competitions, regionals, the Open, and she performed really well at the games, but I always thought she had more in her at the games.
I mean,
I think that
there's, if we could just figure out how to get her to perform at her best, could be the one to challenge Tia. She seems to have hasn't come together at the right time in the right way. And to be fair to Tia, even if that was the case, maybe but it seems like she's never been able to get everything dialed in at the right time to show us what her the true limits of her potential are. And that's why it's hard to place her on the list.
I thought she was going to be the next Rich Froning in 2015 or 14, whatever her first year is. She showed up
Yeah.
at the games. I think I even say it in the behind the scenes. She was so dominant. And going back to the Open, I disagree. I don't think it's even relevant what our opinion is of whether people give it their all or not. There is such little room for error in the Open. There is so little room. You take 2800th place in a workout, and you are fucked. And so I think the Open, if you win the Open, you are. I think it's me personally. I think it's tantamount to winning the games. I really, really do.
No, that's
It
complete. That's
is.
totally wrong, dude. How many times has Tia won the Open in the last 5 years?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even the fact that
No,
she
it matters.
didn't-
She's been the fittest. She has not lost a live competition in 5 years. You can't tell me that Sarah winning the Open makes her fitter than her in any of those.
Well, you could argue it's that Tia didn't try her hardest, or you could say is that she's just not as good at the Open. She's just not as good. I could flip the argument and say that, hey, she's when you have 100,000 people in there, she can't stay at the top with all of those people. I don't think I think that those people are trying their hardest. I don't buy that argument, even if they
Too much
tell me they're
variability.
not.
You can have the option to redo the workout as many times as you want. You can be range of motions marginally, and they may or may not penalize you for it. There's a lot of different nuances and variables that don't exist in live competition that doesn't hold water for me.
I'm not arguing that either. There's tennis that's on clay court, on grass court, and whatever that other third court is, and just like there's competitions with their different CrossFit competitions with different variability. I still don't think it takes away from the profound statistical odds and the level of competition in the Open. I think the Open is. Matt, you shut it. Matt Souza just said Brian is on. I don't want to hear your opinion. You just get us
And,
people to be on the show.
and small group of people who have won the Open. Majority of them. For the men, Noah's won one, Dan's won one, and maybe there was one other person. Like it's really hard to win the Open. So I don't want to take that away from her. I just don't think that it's one of the things that when I'm comparing her to the other women on this list.
Okay.
Huh, that's cool. That's all I got.
Sarah, we all agree you're good. We want to see you do better. Number 5.
So number 5, Sam Briggs. This, I mean, she's old and she's still competing with the elite level Open at the games. This will be her 9th. She was a champion in 2013. That's her only podium. Kind of a little bit of a knock again. And obviously, we're getting into this like the best of the best here. She doesn't really have any terrible performances at games, but her 3 worst finishes are 19th, 18th, and 25th. Again, those 18th and 25th are from the last 2 years, though, and 19th is a rookie year. So in between there, and she didn't make the games every year. She had a couple years where she 2014 due to handstand walking, so she wasn't able to win her title that year. But her finishes were 4th, 1st, 4th, and 9th. So 5 consecutive years in the prime of her career inside the top 10, 4 of those inside the top 4. And Sam Briggs comes in 4th all-time currently with 11 event wins at the games. So been incredibly impressive in recent off-season competitions. Again, we of course know that she's usually competing against girls that are 5 to 15 years younger than her in these events. 2 years ago, she won the Australian CrossFit Sanctional. She was 3rd at Dubai. The second year she competed there, she was 5th at Filthy 150, and she was 12th at the Rogue Online event. So phenomenal, around forever. She's got incredible proficiency to win events. She has great performances at the games. She has a championship under her belt. It was like she was still in this group with Sarah and Chris Carey that I was kind of debating between, but I still feel like there's a spot in the top 5.
I really like Sam Briggs, and I don't know if this is what the exact word is for this, but in 2014 or 15, whatever year you said that was, that she didn't make the games, I would call that one of the most, man, is the word heartbreaking, controversial, noteworthy topics around her, because it really changed the games that year in terms of the validity of that win for those of us who were watching it closely. Kind of like it, validity is a little strong, but kind of
Sevan,
like
that
how
was
it changes the landscape that Matt's not in it this year.
That was the same year. So Sam, she didn't qualify, and then Cara was up there battling with Camille for the title that year, and she had to withdraw. So potentially, but this women that year weren't able to
Start it.
Wow. Talk about having the stars align for Camille.
So that means Camille's not in your top 4.
Ooh. Very good call. Good call, Hobart.
And also, I just want to say real quick, Nick.
Does that mean
says
she's number 11? Does that mean Camille's number 11? Is that your guess for number 11, Hobart?
11 or 12? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Hobart.
Nick from YouTube says that how many people do well in the Open and then end up last in the games?
Yeah. See, so that's really revealing that comment because they're different competitions, but they all are still in that CrossFit ecosystem in terms of where the test is coming from, and the test is coming from the company that defined the fittest, or the man that defined the fittest, Greg Glassman.
Brian, who has the most Triple Crown wins? So like win the Open in the year, win the regional, win the games.
Wow.
Well, Tia's only won the Open once, and I think it was it this year or last year? So I'm trying to think of any women. Maybe I don't know if any woman has ever done that actually. Maybe.
But I think Matt and Rich have done that a couple times, right?
Rich and 3 times in a row, 2012, 13, 14, and Fraser, he didn't win the Open every year. Did a couple years, but I think he did maybe 2018. So I'd say Rich probably has 3 and Matt has 2, but I'm just guessing.
Is Samantha Briggs top 3 in the most mentally tough disciplined athletes?
I mean,
Like, has anyone competed harder for longer? Not a soul.
maybe. I mean, there's 3 athletes in the history of the game, men or women, with more games appearances than her.
Wow. Who are they?
Annie Thorsdottir, Ben Smith, and Rebecca Voigt.
There you go.
Wow.
That's rarefied air. That's cool.
And I'd like to argue this for Sam Briggs. If she was at the games, she deserved to win the Spirit of the Games. So any year that you see someone won the Spirit of the Games and it wasn't her, you know that there's a political bias. Because I'm telling you, from being down there on the field with her, there is nobody who compares to her in terms of camaraderie, presence, attentiveness to her fellow athletes, attitude. She is in a league of her own.
Yeah, Briggs is awesome. That's cool. I like that a lot. 5. You got 1 out of 10 right so far, Brian. You're getting there.
Oh shit! But you got to weigh the one. You got to weigh the ones at the top more heavily.
Yeah. We'll see what happens here.
If you get the next 4 right, Brian, James will let us publish this show with his picture on it.
Well, we'll see then.
Hey, and by the way, why is the hot link to watching this show live not a picture of me and a picture of Hobart?
I know, and it's not a great picture. I'm gonna send you guys some different pictures.
It's a great picture of you. What are you talking about?
I mean, that came from Torin, Emmy winner.
Yeah, great. Torrin Simpson, he killed it. That's a great photo. Okay, Brian, number 4.
Number 4 is the person I think is the fittest to have never won the CrossFit Games. It's Cara Saunders, formerly Karma Webb, and Cara Gordon. So if you're trying to look up the totality of her competitive career, you need to check those things out. This will be
3
her
names. She was Saunders, Gordon, and then wait, what was the order her names went in?
Gordon, Webb, Saunders.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know she was a Gordon.
Anyway. Okay, so she's been this games. She did have to take a year off 2 years ago to give birth to her child, and she came back last year and competed in the online version. But She didn't make it to stage 1. She just missed by the final 5 last year, so she ended up taking 8th. First 2 years of the games were okay, 19th and 12th and 4th. She also had that year in 2014 that we already referenced where she would have finished first or second, right up there with Camille if she was able to finish the weekend. Ultimately, she had a pinched nerve in her shoulder and wasn't able to see it through after a couple push-pull, and then the midline too much for her. She couldn't go on. So, fortunate, close call. 2017, she only lost by 2 points to Tia. That epic finish on Fibonacci finale. That was a pretty heated and 2-3 in or competition because the two day where her judge had said she could go ahead to finish, but she to do so. She thought she'd done this in a workout, then she had to wait for a scoring review, and at the end of the day, it came out at 2 points. And it's not. I mean, I'm not sitting here and trying to say she was fitter than Tia that year. I mean, Tia, is a worthy champion. Obviously, it was her first title. Also, that's how close she's been to winning a couple times. She's right behind Sam in terms of number of event wins at the games, and in the few off-season events she's done in the last year, and a third was at the Rogue Invitational. The year was online competition where she was competing at 2 and 3 in the morning doing those workouts against girls from all over the world. So again, I think that Cara is a little bit up and down. There's a little bit of misfortune in some of the years for her to not be able to maybe have resume. It could be better, but she's made it her way over to the U.S. She's got a couple weeks to get ready here, and I think she's poised to have another good performance at the game. Could only potentially bolster her resume.
The little bit I know all of the athletes from my interactions with them, she is I don't know what the words are for this. Competitive nature is crazy. It is so intense. She is she's a win by any means necessary kind of gal. When Brian and I most recently interviewed her, were you on that podcast where we interviewed her, Brian? She presents a little more happy-go-lucky than I think she really is. This lady is a warrior. She is. She doesn't mince words. She is. She's not worried about making friends out there. She is. She's a killer. It's really. Something is definitely unique about her.
I agree, and it was. I didn't feel like I could make any case to move her higher up on this list. I did. Honestly, as I was talking to you guys about Sam, move Sam ahead of her, I wouldn't probably dispute it too much. But overall, I think Cara just has potential, across the full scope of the test. I know Sam has more more of that up and down performance, whereas Cara has a capability to win events, but there's really few events over the history of her career where she's done poorly relative to the competition field, and she's challenged in more recent years, in ways that few have, and that holds some merit for me.
She also crossed the finish line unconscious one year, and that deserves a standing ovation for sure. That was insane. I think that was in Murph, right?
That was Murph in 2015.
Okay. Do you respect that, Hobart? Oh, Hobart's muted. That's my perfect. No wonder we haven't heard him talking.
I like this placing a lot.
Number 2.
Number three.
Number three. Should we skip number 3 and just go to number 2?
Well, there it is. Number 3, Katrin Davidsdottir. So now we're getting into the realm of multiple times games champions. Was in third here. This is also going to be her 9th year at the games. So that's the same number of games appearances as Cara, Saunders, and Sam, all of whom are still competing, obviously, in the sport. Off start her first 2 years at the games where she was 30th, but when she came back and won in 2015, she had the top 5 for 6 consecutive years. 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and I don't
There's more to say about
her, but that alone is enough to keep her inside the top 3 for now. She has 13 career event wins, top time amongst women with Annie Thor's daughter. You know, she's really good. She's really consistent, and she's done it against some of the best competition in recent years. She's earned her spot.
One of the most charismatic athletes, I think. I think she's taken what she has and run with it in terms of all categories: her fitness, her personality, her presence in the space. Always super easy to interview behind the scenes. Always available. Doesn't seem to be caught up in her head when she's, when the events aren't going on. Yeah. And she's taken a leadership position amongst the girls. I think amongst that women's class, her presence is for surely felt. She has incredible presence. And when she walks onto the floor or in the corral. Sorry, Brian.
No. Unlike a couple of the other girls that are still competing in the space, but despite the changes in the season the last 2 years, she's continued to find ways to. And if you look at that 2019 season in particular, she's a great example of this thing that I've been talking about, because she barely top 10. I think she was either 9th or 10th, and Annie was like 5 points behind her but missed the cut. And so Annie did not get to continue.
Katrin
Did. Katrin rose all the way up to
course
the weekend. And that's what I'm saying, is we expected people like Annie Thor's daughter, who just barely missed the cut, or a Brooke Wells, or a Laura Horvath, or a Pat Vellner, or a Cole Sager to make similar moves on that weekend, but they didn't have the chance. And if not 30 ring muscle-ups being in the final event, she might have even been able to overtake on the podium that year. So her case study from 2019, her barely getting in the top 10 and then rising all the way up to 4th, is exactly the reason why I think that this year is have a much better reflection of where these athletes are still competing this year, who are in the top 10, and 5 guys. And I think we'll watch as the weekend unfolds, the games coming up, athletes continue to move up the leaderboard, and they're most reflective of their relative fit.
Has Katrin ever beat Tia at the games?
Yeah, in 2015
and 2016, Katrin won the games, and Tia was second.
Yeah, that's incredible as a feat, but it also gives Katrin something that probably the other women don't have. In her mind, Tia is still beatable.
Well,
because
if you look at those 2 years,
she's done it twice.
Sure. Specifically, one of the things Katrin's well known for is her ability to fight. And in both years, it wasn't a runaway victory. It was incredibly close between her, Sarah, and coming down the stretch. And she just was, to pull it out given the context of the rules that year. And one of the most, maybe the best exchange of those that we've ever had, especially in the women's field, in the morning on workouts, the handstand walk, the
sled pull, whatever
it was, and then the sprint. And I think it was Katrin took the lead, Tia took the lead, Katrin took it back to her, and then we went to the tennis stadium for the finale, and Katrin was just barely able to fend her off. But again, Katrin beat her on the rope chipper, and then Tia beat her on the final event, and it wasn't sure how it was going to settle. And they were just, like I said, exchanging blows all day long. She had to, pulled ahead of her by just enough. Katrin's known for is fighting till the end, and she's, in a row, in this day and age, it's hard to look.
And Brian, will you explain that, what the smart strategic move that Katrin did that year by there wasn't a cap on the event? Will you explain what happened there?
2015 was the first year we saw the pegboard, and then Pedal to the Metal won on the pegboard. And so once that
12 girls
had at least done one pegboard, and everyone else in the field tied for 13th, which earned them, I think it was either 54 or 56 points. And Katrin was one of the girls who was unable to do the pegboard. Tia was able to do it, so she got more points than that. And those 56 points, margin of victory that year was like 52 points. So she games if she received 0 points for that event. And I always think that in that scenario, because it was a new implement, Dave brief that they would have to do it before the games, as we talked about with some other things.
appropriate.
Not to say that they should have been disqualified for moving on in the competition, but it's just like, okay, you accomplished 0 reps in this workout, you get 0 points. This year in the quarter
5-pound snatch.
but I couldn't enter a score of 0. I had to enter dash because I couldn't even complete the first rep. And so I think that makes sense, especially when you go back in history and think about the 2010 CrossFit Games, when the story goes that Dave Castro was there on this dude who happened to be Rich Froning can't climb the rope. We're not going to get a championship. We're not even going to let him go on the podium. And you fast forward 5 games, champion is someone who could not do the pegboard. Not only that, but while all the girls were struggling for the entire duration
Pegboard.
she, because there was no minimum work requirements this year, chose to not even try in the back half of the event. Forearms loose and warm, and then ended up killing pedal to the.
But I think also that speaks to why Katrin's always been such a threat, is because she looks at the totality of the competition. Like, she's always been someone who's like, yeah, she's super fit and she prepares, but she doesn't just look at like, what can my fitness do in this workout? Like, she's thinking about every aspect of the weekend to grab points. And that's why you see her like climb into the 2019 games and then or 2020, and then continue to push to the top of the leaderboard.
Right, and it's taking anything away from Ben's ability to strategize that. They may very well could have set and said, well, this event, we might not get a pegboard. If you fail at 3 work requirement, they didn't tell us that you have to continue to try throughout. So if you're not going to get it, just accept ready for the next one. And if that's the conversation accordingly within the rules, then I would say that that's not a problem with what Ben and Katrin did. That's a problem with the fact that CrossFit still decided to give all those athletes 50-something points for doing nothing.
Do you think there should be a minimum work requirement on all workouts?
Not necessarily. Like, I didn't think that there was needed in that example. I just don't think you should get points for doing nothing, and especially if you don't try.
I like that a lot.
I think there should be a minimum work requirement. Number 2. Oh, sorry. You want to say something, Brian, to that?
No.
Number 2.
Number 2, Annie Thorsdottir. So she is Katrin's mentor. You know, she was the one that Katrin for be in Iceland that motivated her to get involved in this.
And
Started training with her, and obviously has come up and been, in some ways, Annie was the face of the sport a long time ago. And Sevan, you said that Katrin has become kind of a leader, forging forward for the women in the space now. It's kind of cool that they both come from Iceland and in her footsteps on the floor, but also off the floor. Mark Annie's 11th time competing at the CrossFit Games.
Wow.
She's 2-time champion in 2011 and 12. She's got 2 second-place finishes, 1 third-place finishes. That gives her 5 total podium games, which is second all-time for the women and tied second all-time overall. She at the games ties her with Katrin for second most all-time. And then, I mean, it's really incredible. Like, she's only 12 or 13 months post giving birth to her child. Again for the games this year, via some different formats, and I think against even her own expectations. She is remarkable in every single way, and it was an easy choice to put her.
Oh, that's good to hear. And you mentioned it. She just had a baby, and then she's back at the games. And same thing with Cara Saunders. We didn't mention that. And for anyone who's had a baby, oh, we did. Okay. For anyone who hasn't had a baby, like the three of us, we can only imagine how hard that is. But that is a very noteworthy. Also, when Annie came onto the scene in 2009,
9, yeah.
She was at the CrossFit Ranch, and along with Miko Salo and herself, they were probably the first two. This is a little bit maybe of a gross exaggeration, but I'll go with it. Her and Miko were probably the first two superstars of the sport. They both had incredible aura. Both the fans loved them. Miko continued to maintain that fandom and that appreciation from the community, although didn't have the success Annie had in the games. But Annie took off like a rocket ship, and she sort of embodied everything that there is about CrossFit before it was known for the CrossFit Games, meaning she showed up there, she did the unknowable, and she struggled in front of the crowd even to get one muscle up in 2009, and the crowd got behind her. And it wasn't necessarily just her abilities that made her a superstar, but her inabilities, and to take her lumps with humility. So she is a remarkable and unique character of the likes we'll never, ever see in the sport ever again. Just because people won't show up and be, I don't think anyone will ever show up and be as exposed as she is in front of the crowd. And the community did a wonderful job and embraced that. Nowadays, if you show up exposed at the games, all the pundits jump on you and they're like, "Wow, shit! I can't believe they can't do muscle ups." Where back then they got behind you.
Not only were her and back then, but they were the first real prominent international. And even to this day, Europe has continued to excel. Non-North American countries have not. I mean, of the top 10 that we have here are from Europe, and 3 of them are from Iceland, and Annie gets a lot of credit for that.
And on top of that, she comes from a nation, I think the country of Iceland only has 300,000 people. It probably has more CrossFit gyms per capita than anywhere. There's probably no second place anywhere close. And she brought this great lifestyle methodology to her country, and probably single-handedly changed her country's health, on top of Greg Glassman's methodology, more so than any one person has done to a country. And of course, that's relative to the fact that they only have 300,000 people and they're all related.
And there was one year that she had to withdraw from the cross. That 13th or better 10 times or 9 times. It's pretty impressive. A span where the games has continued to grow and evolve, gotten stronger and deeper. She's continued to be relevant.
I'm disappointed that neither of you cracked a smile when I said in a country where everyone's related. That really sucks that fell on deaf ears.
Yeah, I wasn't going to give you that, man.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, number 1.
Number 1, not just the fittest female ever, but making a very strong case, human of all time, Tia Claire Toomey. She came into the scene as a very, maybe some people in Australia knew her when she was 2015, and she, narrowly won the for maybe a scoring decision by the administering company games that year. But her career might have unfolded quite different had that happened. She came back in 2016, and there's a documentary from that year, the CrossFit Games documentary, that mentally she wasn't sure if her result in 2000
indicative
of what she could do in this space, and she was still questioning if she'd belonged in the conversation with some of those women. She seemed in the off season that year. She showed up to 2017. I think it was perfect for her because she had to go against Cara Webb, who was the forerunner in Australia as like the standard and gold bearer and athlete to beat there. They'd had traded some blows at the regional level, but different story. And the fact that it ended up being Cara that was pushing her right to the edge in that competition, and the fact that now she's got a second, a first, and from this is basically as dominating as it can be. Not only has she won the games, 2018, 20.
She's competed
In 5 sanctionals, she's won them all, and her margins of victory continued to get bigger and bigger. I told you that Katrin and Annie are tied for the second most career event wins for women with 13. Yes, she had 13 event. Tia had alone last season at the games, and now she has 24 total. So she's continuing to just put herself ahead of everyone in every. And like you mentioned a while ago, Sevan, that is very intimidating for the rest of the athletes too.
How much pressure is on her? We always talk about how much pressure she puts on everyone else. Is this pressure that's put on her, like can she maintain this? I mean, it kind of sucks to go somewhere and everyone know you're going to win, right? Because then all you have to do, the only place you have to go is down, and then maybe people aren't even as impressed by your victory.
Yeah, I mean, the games this year, Obviously, it's very fun.
Tired
So we can talk about all these different guys who have a unique.
games.
And on the women's side, basically, when anyone's asked me, I'm like, okay, well, I think we should basically not talk the games, and then let's talk about what she's doing there. Is she continuing to dominate? Is she dominating by more? Has the field caught up to back? And then after the fact, there's plenty to talk about. It's I think I can't remember which one. Almost a foregone conclusion. Like if she shows up, she's going to win.
Long.
That's a great question of how that affects coach and her team's preparation. How do you handle that? Just like knowing that the whole world expects this of you.
I'm hoping she blocks it all out, because we shouldn't take anything. We shouldn't take anything away from her. It's not like people wouldn't like give 5 years of their life to beat her. I mean, people want to beat her. There's no question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the girls that are competing there that have, podium finishes, performances, and have been to the games 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times before, they'll certainly feel like they have the experience and the fitness and the capacity to win the CrossFit Games. But you have to go through to do it. And so far, no one's been able to stand in her way.
Is good. The fact that she is still doing it, and this is the women who are still competing should appreciate this. If you beat Tia, that will be amazing, and it will catapult you. Whereas opposed to whoever wins the CrossFit Games this year in the men's division is going to have a little bit of that shadow on them. Everyone's going to say, yeah, that was the first year Matt retired. So as much as you might hate her, the fact that she's in there and so dominant, it also is a tremendous opportunity to really catapult yourself and really stake claim that you are the best ever, even with one win. As long as she doesn't shit the bed or something, like drink some pond water in Madison and shit herself the rest of the week.
Well, CrossFit is you get one chance at the games. It's one weekend. And if you happen to be sick, if you happen to tweak an ankle early in the comp, food poisoning, who knows what it could be. Like all those little things could offset the whole weekend. But despite any of that, look at the success she's had. James, he actually asked me a question earlier in the week. He's like, what if Mallory O'Brien beat Tia this year? How high up on your rank would she jump? And I didn't really know how to handle that, because one of the first looked at when I was making this list is everyone who I'm including here has been to the games at least 3 times. If you've only got one appearances, I didn't even consider you for this list.
Yeah.
Hobart's stunned. He's either judging us or he's stunned at how incredible the two of us are.
No, I'm just thinking about this. I'm still thinking about the Annie Catcherd thing, but I definitely think Tia's number one. I'm super biased toward Tia and Shane. I think they're awesome. I think her dominance, poise, demeanor in the sport is like unparalleled. I mean, she's as physically dominant comparatively as Matt is, but like energy she brings into the games is amazing. I'm a huge Tia fan, so super biased here. She's 1+.
The good thing is, Bart, if you are struggling with the placement of Annie and Katrin, that all of these girls are in the games this year. So when we review this list after the games, those second, third, and fourth place, Annie, Katrin, Card, there could be some movement there.
Yeah, I just think Katrin has a much better games. I feel like Brian just has like a soft spot for like CrossFit Legacy, but I think just Katrin's overall finishes at the games edge her out into that, and she's beat Tia twice, which Annie hasn't done. Edge her into that second place spot, but
No, I mean, if you look at if you look at the average finishes at the games over Annie's career, which is 10. Well, I don't count the year that she withdrew from the games, but for the competition, her average finish at the games is 5.5. And if you look at Katrin's, it's 8.75. But if you discount the first 2 years that she competed, then it's much better than Annie's. Yes. So I can, and in the years that Annie and Katrin have competed against each other, especially once after Katrin's first 2 years, Katrin's beat her a bunch of times, sometimes by small. He did beat her in 2017 again. a, to me, that was the best women's competition. 2017 games. Those finishers went Tia, Cara, Annie, Sarah, Katrin. So that was a pretty impressive list. And then several other athletes were in the top 10 that you'll recognize. Tennille Berline, outlier, but then Kristen Holt, Jamie Green, Sam Briggs, Carrie Pierce, Alessandra Pacelli. So that was a really impressive year, and Annie was able to do that, to beat Katrin that year. I think Katrin, she's still pretty young too. I think she's 28, and she's got the potential to certainly Annie on this list, but I didn't feel comfortable making the move yet.
Do you think Hobart, did he convince you? Did he
No.
slap the shit out of you? No. Okay.
He did. He beat me with that Q-tip again, but
Okay.
The other thing is,
He's
don't
not
think-
done.
They both have two titles, obviously, and while Katrin's did come against Tia, there was a little bit of, I just don't like CrossFit in 2015. It seemed to me to be against their MO based on the prior history at that time in that particular event. And Annie's win to me are completely untainted. Like, there's nothing that questions the fact that she won those.
that's a better argument. I
And-
don't want to
and-
give that to him right now, but
And look at the year Annie didn't win her first year at the CrossFit Games. It was all around ring muscle ups. It was the Rich Froning, Matt Fraser phenomenon. They collapsed on one event. That if she would have had just a little bit of practice on, maybe she would have won. How close was she to
but you could use that same argument for the pegboard thing related to Katrin. I don't think that's like. though I think,
But Katrin's, it's how she dealt with it, I think, is that Brian's saying. Not to blame her, but how CrossFit allowed her to deal with it.
okay.
I'm glad that you brought that up, though, James. It is a good conversation. I thought those were the clear top three. Well, 1 and then 2 and 3 was pretty obvious, but like I said, I wasn't ready to move Katrin ahead of Annie yet. If Katrin podiums this year, finishes, than that, then maybe I would.
Is Tia a better CrossFit athlete than Matt?
Fraser?
Yes.
I don't. That when Tia retires, I don't know. I don't know how to.
Okay.
It's you just choose one of the names, Brian. You either, I'll help you. You say either Matt or Tia, and we'll know what you mean by that.
Yeah, I can't do that though. I need to be able to give you a solid reason, and I don't feel like I've investigated enough to do it yet.
Oh, what do you
Give me,
what-
what's your response?
I think the
Matt or Tia? That's how you do it. Matt or Tia?
statistically, it's Matt. In my heart, it's Tia. Tia is just, it's crazy. I don't even like to talk about how good she is because I feel bad. Like it takes away from her future wins, or it puts too much pressure on her. But she is she's something else. And then of course, man, I don't know. I'm not as smart as Brian, but there's also that last event that Matt Fraser did for the entire CrossFit world. The one where you talked about, Hobart, where he said, should I turn it on now or whatever. I mean, that one event, what he showed the world. I mean, he didn't have to do that, and he still crushed. Like, yeah, I'm gonna say Tia, but I'm open to being wrong. If she doesn't win this year, it's Matt.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Do you want to see the girls that just barely missed?
Yeah, I want to see 11 and 12 and
let's see number
13.
11. How close were number 11 and 10 before we see number 11?
There you
Put
go.
in there.
Told you. Camille.
I had her in there and bumped her out the last moment.
So okay, so that was hard.
That was hard.
And
Yeah, I know.
and why is that? What was the deciding factor? Who has longer hair, or
Jeez.
No, I mean, I just you look at Julie only competed 4 years, fifth, second, third. Camille went to the games 9 times, which is quite substantial. But out first place finish, her other 8 finishes were all worst finish. They both won 4 times at the games. Yes, Camille won that one year. About how that year was like the perfect storm for her. Draw. Sam didn't make it. I mean, she still beat Annie that year, and Julie finished third that year. Completely void field. It was an incredible year for, but it's an outlier relative to the rest of her performance at the games, whereas Julie's performance at the games were very consistent and
all better.
I isn't that punishing though, Camille, for the fact that she went to more CrossFit games?
no, because
that
let's
doesn't
just
seem
take out
fair.
let's just take out her 4 best years out of 9. She was first, 6th, 8th, and 9th. Julie's only 3rd, 5th, and 5th.
Damn. Who's 12?
And if you take longevity or period of time, but even if you pull out, Camille, we've given her, and her best 4 finishes, only one of them is better than any of Julie's top 4 finishes.
I know.
But
That
the
makes me
one
feel
is
like there's
the one.
yeah, it makes me feel like there's some flawed thinking in that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can articulate it yet.
James, I'll give you that. And in this case, less than the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 5th performance.
Yeah, I can tell.
12 is someone who definitely can break into the top 10 depending on performance in the next couple of years. She's still super young. She's already got, this will be her 7th games. She has 3 event wins at the games, and 1, 2, 3. And out of all 6 years she's finished the competition, nothing. She's still got a big chance to move up.
This is her 7th games.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So her first game, she was 19.
19, 20, something like that.
That's wild.
Someone wrote, "Can Sevan make a list of the hottest CrossFit athletes of all time?" And then someone else wrote, "He only has 2 people on the list: Rich Froning and Travis Mayer." Am I that transparent?
Yes.
I'd put Brooke Wells on there. When I did the CrossFit podcast, I tried to say her name in every podcast in the beginning, like I say Travis Mayers now. I think Brooke Wells is absolutely stunning, and there's something quite angelic and like peaceful and fun about her. She's awesome.
Ryan, scroll
Sevan-
through some of the rest of the list. Let's see if anyone catches.
Number 13, Becca Voigt. Yeah, real quick, let's stop at Becca Voigt real quick. This girl, Becca Voigt, this lady is in I would put her in a unique category. Her and Ben Smith deserve their own category, I feel like, of CrossFitters. They've really bridged the. They've been there for the rest of the best athletes in the world to beat up on, and they've given us continuity throughout the years, and they are unique. I'm not sure how to. Do you want to jump on that and help me at all?
No, you
Hobart?
say that, and it's great. And the thing is, Becca's still competing. She has 10 individual appearances, but she has a couple of Masters appearances too. But Annie's got 11 individual games appearances, which is actually more than Becca. And Katrin Davis, Cara Saunders, Sam are going to make their 9th appearance. Camille's has 9. So there's a bunch of girls that actually have a lot of experience here. And even if you go further down, like Alessandra Pacelli and Stacy Tovar, who've been to the games 8, a lot of girls with a lot of games.
Was Becca the first? Well, thanks for fucking up my story. Let's go on to 14. No, was Becca the first person to be in 10 games though? I think she was the first.
It was her, Spiel, right?
No, Spiel didn't make 10. It was either her or Ben.
Okay. Anyway, I respect the shit out of Becca Voigt. Number 14.
Well, yeah, we don't have to pause and talk. Thought you might like to see some of them because there's a few throwbacks for you on the list. Some girls that are obviously still competing. For you.
Yeah,
I was
one of the.
actually I was wondering where she was in the list because yeah, that's good.
Oh, let's stop at Laura Horvath for a second. Can she do something at the games this year that brings her into the top 10, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, if she took second again this year, I'd have to give pause for that for sure. Games appearances, she was second in her rookie year in 2018. Then she was 15th and 24th in the last 2 years, which were kind of like we've said, some different strange years. So I don't know, maybe, but definitely she's still super. But expect her, if she wants to continue to compete, 5 to 8 more CrossFit games and really, really make.
Okay. Michelle Latondra. Lindsay Valenzuela. Wow. Is this
Oh.
the youngest person to be on this top 20 list?
Yeah, and the least
By
experienced.
youngest, I don't mean youngest in age, but youngest to the scene, newest to the scene.
Yeah, I mean, but we'll see. I almost didn't include her at all because she hasn't technically met the minimum requirement of games yet, but I didn't want to forget about her when I looked at it. Sixth and
right.
fourth so far in 2 years. 20 years old.
How? So
Alessandra Pacelli, number 21. China
Yeah, but-
Cho, number 22.
Haley Adams, how quickly? Like, what is the lowest she could place this year for her to rocket up toward the top 10?
I think another top
good
5
question.
finish.
Yeah. Okay. Like, I feel like she jumps the most spots by the end of this year.
Yeah, she's
China
incredible,
Cho.
man.
Amanda Barnhart, number 23.
I mean, now we're gonna get into some old school.
Wow.
ones.
Michelle Kinney. Holy cow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a freak of nature. She was pretty
I think
awesome.
she's still an affiliate owner too.
Christy Phillips, Christy Adkins. How many games did she go to, Brian? Do you know off the top of your head? Yeah, that's incredible. And another old school athlete, Elizabeth Akinwale. How many games did she go to?
5 games, 6 event wins. Very, very at the games.
Wow. And very, very, very stoic during competition week. Very, very, very stoic. Okay, go on. Stacy Tovar, number 27.
8 games appearances. Margot 6 games appearances.
Wow. What happened to Tennille? I thought she was. This was a bona fide. This was more than a. This was a bona fide athlete. This was a. This I'll throw in the category as Carolyn Prevost. She. This is. She was something special. Is she still around?
She actually qualified for semifinals. I didn't reach out to her to ask why, but 3 years, 11th, 6th, and 12th, and won one event there. She was, yeah, very good. But I think she had a kid, and then I just don't know if it's her focus anymore.
Gotcha. Wow. 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 Did she beat Annie? Go to Carrie Kepler, number 30. Did she beat? Is that who won the games in?
In 2009.
Okay, third in 2009. Incredible. Tunnicliffe, Anna Tobias, 31, 32. Caroline Reason Tebow. Oh, wow, Brian. I am surprised. This is one of your favorite athletes, right?
Say that, but I mean, the whole point of showing the rest of the list is just to see how many good athletes there are, and it's to distinguish between some of these, but it's notable careers and good resumes. Ultimately, it just gives value to the top 10 even more so to say how many impressive athletes they have to be better than.
I say she's one of your favorite because when her name came up, I don't remember what region she was in, but I just remember you being emphatic about how good she is and how impressed you were by her, and you thought we should get her on the podcast and talk to her. That there's incredible potential in this athlete.
Yeah, I think she finished 8th in 2019, but it was because of the way that 2019 season. 22nd, 16th, and 20th. I think she'll have a breakout year this year.
Bethany Shadburn, can she break the top 10 with a? Yeah, does she what does she have to do to
Top
break
10?
the top 10? Yeah.
She needs like of top 10 finishes at the games at least.
Wow.
I think Bethany, if you're listening, I think if you beat Tia this year, you make the top 10. Number 34. Do we have a 34 and 35? Emily
Oh.
Bridgers. Yep. Ma'am. Crazy to see her that low on the list. She's insane. Thuri Helga Doder. What a great list, Brian. Thanks for doing this. This is awesome.
Well, you're welcome. It was a good idea, and it was fun to do. I think it's a living list. We'll have to obviously make some amendments to it, even. But
Thank goodness.
I understand some of the. Like I said, I felt like the women was more difficult inside the top 10 than the men. I'm happy with it for now, but some changes based on this year's games.
Cameron, I don't know where Michelle Latondra was. She was in the top 35. I'm going to guess 23 or 33. I can't remember, but I did see her on there. James Hobart, I'd like to speak to you directly right here. There's going to be a lot of people on the internet talking shit about Brian after this for a little while, and it'd be nice if you didn't contribute to that. But you have this look on your face that you're already jumping on Reddit to smash them, and so
Oh heck no, Brian, I got
cool.
I got your back, man. I could, I don't think there's anybody out. You're the preeminent CrossFit statistician / know-it-all. So when it comes to the games, I got your back, man.
And usually know-it-all has negative context, Brian, but in this case, I think I heard it used in positive.
Well,
I mean, look.
I understand that it's there. No matter how objective I try to be, there's still some subjectivity that creeps in. I try to do my best to be as objective or not, and I think it's
Just that people
can see that there's a lot of athletes from the early days or the first half of this point that still deserve to be recognized and acknowledged for the they have. As the sport ages, those people will, descend further and further into the rankings and into the history books. I still think what they were able to do early on, a lot of value and high accomplishment. So I wanted to make sure to include them in deserve to be.
Thank you guys for listening to this. Thank you guys for tuning in. We know that Brian's having it's not his fault. For some reason, he's having some audio issues. We will make a clean version of this. If you want to check it out again, we'll upload a clean version where Brian's audio is perfect. And then soon we'll be posting on the internet somewhere. I think we're going to launch the SevanPodcast.com, and on there will be Brian's official top 10 best of all time in both categories, and it's really, in my opinion, and I think anyone with a brain's opinion, the definitive list for CrossFit rankings, the best in the world. So there's that. James Hobart, thanks for giving us time on Sunday. Brian, thanks for exposing yourself to the world. I know it takes a lot to put that kind of stuff on the line for everyone to talk shit about. Peace. Oh, we have two great